Hello, my name's Michaela. Today we'll be looking at the concept of identity in Indigenous people. I'll be using spoken word and poetry to illustrate my concept. We'll be looking at Indigenous knowledges and the ways we come to understand our relationships with others, how identities are constructed, represented, and challenged through this art form. The concept of identity is very important because for Indigenous people, they need to connect to their land. Their stories and their arts express their identity. Their identity is who they are. For their lives, their traditions, their stories, and their future generations to appreciate and learn from. They see the need for children to grow up proud of their identity as Aborigines and to transmit their cultural heritage to future generations. It is hard for Indigenous people to show their identity because of deficit thinking and stereotypes, but to express themselves through the arts is an easy way for anyone to listen to or look at and understand what they are conveying. Through the arts example, I'm incorporating Stephen Oliver, who expresses the turmoil that Indigenous Australians face and have battled with for years, talking about how white Australians don't see Indigenous Australians' identity for what it truly is. The term part Aborigine was used often in the 20th century, but is now clearly seen as a racist term because identity is associated with a sense of belonging to country and community, not one's skin colour. These days, Aboriginal identity is being accepted more than ever, but there's still a long way to go. Through the arts forms, it is being expressed and observed in a big way. Both the media and selected academic perceptions may be argued to promote varying degrees of resistance to acknowledging the ongoing impact of such inequity, whilst also ignoring the legacy of racism that may be argued to rapidly perpetuate discriminations and attack the very identities of Indigenous Australians.
There's something so true, just as is the Australian in you. Whatever your last name, whatever it be, Maguire or Tommy or Andrews or Lee, names that arrived from a foreign shore. Yet you are Australian to your very core, so please understand when I say that I am a proud Australian Aboriginal man. And though I might have other bloodlines in me, it does not alter my identity. Thank you.
Stephen Oliver is a powerful Aboriginal man who expresses his concerns and thoughts through the spoken word and poetry. The words he speaks are so commanding and profound, coming from deep within his heart.
Hate, he said. But he did not know that what I had inside of me was a sadness born of empathy. That because I did not celebrate, it did not mean I was full of hate. I asked him to just try and see through my eyes the tragedy of dispossession, of the pain, the hurt, of the red of blood that stained this earth. I mourn for the lives that were lost. I mourn for what this country cost. I mourn for how we came to be, for the end does not justify the means.
I agree that both the processes and patterns of behaviours associated with identifying and being accepted as Aboriginal are as much as a problem as they suggest being a solution to reassert a collective and self-defined Aboriginal identity today. In conclusion, the concept of identity through Indigenous Australians is a big problem. But through the arts, it is being able to be expressed in a way that everyone can understand. Watching and talking about spoken words and poetry that Stephen Oliver has talked about expresses just how hard it can be to be an Aboriginal person in Australia, but also how proud he is to be an Indigenous Australian. That through his spoken words, the deficit thinking that goes on in Australia and the identities that we have constructed about them can be challenged. He expresses these concerns in a way everyone can understand. Then we can try and change the way we look at these issues that Indigenous Australians face and try and rekindle the relationships that we have in our communities. I hope that you have learnt about how identity plays a big part in the way Aboriginal Australians live their lives and how they express their identity through the arts. That through spoken word and poetry, how Stephen Oliver conveys his own thoughts on identity. I also hope that you have learnt a bit about how you view identity, and if you can take anything from Stephen Oliver's words. Identity in Australia towards Indigenous communities needs to change, but through the arts, I believe, it is helping change this perspective tremendously. Thank you for listening.